Hello, Century 21 Homestar agents. In this video today, I'm going to go over tips about the short buyer agency agreement. I'm going to give you tips on what each paragraph means. I'm going to give you things to say to a potential buyer in explaining this form and the things that I feel are most important to a buyer. Now, we have two buyer agency agreements that we are promoting. One is the Ohio Association of Realtors form that they created with the Ohio Division of Real Estate. And that's a 4-page form. We love that form better than this form. It's 3 pages and really a signature page. It's very comprehensive. It has everything to and more to help protect you and your clients. But I know it's a little daunting. It's intimidating to some. So we can give you a choice, but we really prefer that one. But this one, if you're too intimidated by that, or you have a buyer that you think it will be intimidated by that because of its length and all of the legalese in it, this is basically that form, but basically down to the minimum required by the state of Ohio, what has to be included in a buyer's agreement. So to start, I'm going to share my screen and do that. And I'm going to pull up that form, which is right here. So hopefully you read it or have it up on your screen or watch me or at least read it beforehand. So if you can, read it beforehand before you watch this video. But I'm going to go through each section with you, and I'm going to go through a little quick buyer presentation on how I would handle explaining this to a buyer and make them feel comfortable. So first, very simple. The length of agreement. You get to choose. Do you want it for a week, a month, 6 months, a year? That's between you and your buyer when you feel how long it will take them to find a house. Agency disclosure really basically explains in here this agreement, it says the word broker. So this is most important. The term broker doesn't mean me. The broker means the company, Century 21 Homestar. So anywhere in this where it says the term broker, broker this, broker that, means their relationship with our office, because all contracts between buyers and company and sellers and listing agreements and company is with the company itself, and me and you as me as the broker, and then you as the agent. That's kind of the legal hierarchy. It's agreement between the company and the agent, or and the buyer with a buyer's agreement and the seller with a listing agreement. Then comes the primary or principal broker, which is me, which that technically term or that duty can be changed. I've been here since I started the office 26 years ago. God willing, I'll be the primary broker forever. So I don't think that's ever going to change. But I just want to know that term, because sometimes say broker, who's your broker? That's the broker, but in this, it's referring to the whole company. Broker's effort, basic bare bone minimum of the things that we're going to do for the buyer. Next, best experience, what we're asking the buyer to do, things that we ask them to do to make their experience the best. Now, 5 and 6, basically the most important part of this contract. So the buyer, read through that, but the broker fee, where it says buyer understands the broker fee and commissions are not set by law and are fully negotiable and may be paid by the seller, the buyer, the landlord, the tenant, or a third party, or sharing or splitting the fee and commissions between brokers. So basically, that's the legal term in bold that we have to have on these agreements. And that's why I put that first and bolded it, and basically explaining to your buyers, anybody could pay us. Basically, this is saying almost anybody can pay us. It doesn't have to be the buyer. So how I explain that to a buyer, read this. You as a buyer, you get to decide. This agreement doesn't force you personally as a buyer to write a check out of your checkbook or pay us out of your pocket. This agreement, how I explain it to agents to explain to buyer, is that you as a buyer are agreeing what my compensation is, and that you promise to make sure somebody pays us. Does that make sense? So this is very specific. instruction I'm giving you as an agent to talk to buyers, explaining, because the media is a little bit different. Even some agents I talk to keep on thinking the buyer has to pay us. That is not true. The buyer does not have to pay us directly out of their pocket. It states right here, the buyer is just agreeing that they have to make sure with working with us and a seller or a third party or the other brokerage, that we will make sure, the buyer and us, to make sure that we get our compensation from somebody. So read through this line with your buyer, and says right here, by law, it says you personally do not have to pay me. You're signing this agreement, making sure we do get paid from somebody. So if you read through the rest of that, it explains that next line at the between the highlighted area and that paragraph explains what you're going to get paid. You put your percentage in there. So combined commission of a flat fee of $350 and a rate of what percentage? We suggest a flat percentage, no 3 2s, 4 2s, whatever. Just it's a straight percentage of the purchase price of the property. That's it. Keeping it simple. You get to decide what that percentage is within reason. This is what I love about these changes that come, because it's opened the market for you. Before, we had a range that we traditionally stayed in as real estate. That's gone. That's gone. That's what I love about this. Now it's open. What do you want in there? There is no limit within reason. So call me. I will explain it to you. I don't want to put it in a video for other people to hear, but whatever traditionally you think you made, you can go higher or you could go lower. You get to decide. If you think this buyer that you're going with, say, I'll give you an example. If you think they have a low-end property and they're buying a $50,000 property, and you have a minimum that you want to make percentage or dollar wise to for all of your services, that percentage could be very, very high, more than it normally was. Are you following me? $50,000, and do a couple percentages what you normally would get, but you said that's pretty low, and you could go higher than those percentages. That's up to you to decide on how for your services and how long it's going to take. If someone says, well, I'm going to find a house within, and it's this price range, I would need to buy a house within a week and close within a month, and I want to use you might go, okay, well, you're pretty high price range, and I will decide, well, for my services and my time and my expertise, it's going to be a lower percentage. So you don't have to be specific. You don't have to be the same on every single house. If it's $50,000 or $500,000, the percentages could be totally different. That's up to you to decide. It's open market. What are you worth? Next, this is very important. I love this. I love this paragraph here. Right there, it says to a buyer, be comfortable. Be comfortable, because most buyers are going to say, I don't want to spend the money, or I don't have the money to give you. Don't worry. You are in control, Mr. or Mrs. Buyer. Here is a paragraph that explains this. You have a choice. When you buy a house, if you don't want to ever have to write a check or pay me at closing out of your pocket, right here, you have options. You can instruct me to ask the seller to pay. It's just a negotiation. Can we guarantee the seller will pay? No, but are we going to explain to the seller with their authorization that the buyer wants you to pay my fees? Buyers 100% can make that a condition of closing. Any buyer can say to a seller, if I buy your house, you have to pay me, my agent, or I'm not buying your house. Buyers can do that. So if your buyer says to you and instructs you, I am not buying a house where I have to pay you out of pocket because I have limited funds, but I want your expertise. I want to hire you. I want to make sure you get paid. I love what you do for me. You helped me with 20 other houses over the last 30 years. This is my last house, whatever the situation is. There's going to be buyers out there that pick their agent, love their agent, would never buy a house without them, and will make the sellers pay if they want to. They want to say, basically, I say, they don't want the seller can't have their cake and eat it too. A buyer can say, if you want me, you have to pay my agent. Buyers can do that. Can you do that? No, you have to do that through the buyer. So you could tell your buyer, you could be flat out stern with and strict with a seller. Now, the next line down goes credit to buyer for closing costs. So a buyer can ask a seller to credit money to them for closing costs. Let me give you an example where this is the sell of this. What I mean by sell is sometimes, hypothetically, there's a percentage that you're going to write in here. Now, you go to a seller or a listing agent, they can't figure out how. They just mentally don't want to pay an agent or have a certain dollar amount that they have to charge. They only want to pay a certain percentage, and it's not the same as yours. There's ways to have them say, hey, seller, would you be happy to put that percentage towards buyer's closing costs or seller concessions? And then you, as the agent, our fees will be charged to the buyer, but it will be kind of a wash. Now, I don't want to go too much in this video to explain that because it's specific, because a lot of agents get confused by that. So if you're confused, don't worry, call me. We'll go over that. But very thing, buyer, feel comfortable. Don't worry. There's that paragraph or the line right under number 5 that explains anybody could pay us. Paragraph below gives you examples. We could ask the seller to pay us directly, or we could ask the seller to pay the percentage I'm telling you that I'm charging up above, on line 5, between line 5 and 6, or paragraph 5 and 6. We could have the seller credit you that percentage at closing to to make it kind of a wash of your costs. So you have to be comfortable explaining to buyers that they are in control. They are totally in control. Now, that's the number one question after you explain that to a buyer, what that is. They're going to say stuff they might ask, what if? What if? What if a seller won't pay? Now, don't assume that that's going to happen, because I promise you, as a broker, I'm not going to get, but things are not going to change that different. Buyers are not, I've been in the business over 30 years. Buyers are not going to automatically have more money. Buyers, even ones with lots of money, are not going to be cheap. They don't want to come up with, they want to buy property with the least amount of cost, the least amount down payment, the least amount of everything. Their buyers are going to continue to ask sellers to pay a major majority of the time. That's not going to change. So whatever you think, that's not going to change. But now the buyers have the control to ask for it. Does that make sense? So you got to make sure you practice this to make your buyer feel comfortable. You're in control. There's no way, if you as a buyer say to me, I don't have the extra money to pay you out of pocket, I don't want to pay you, you're in control. We could make sure that we could guarantee that. What I mean by that, either one, the seller's paying for us, or if the seller says no, they're not paying for our fees, or only a small percentage of our fees, the buyer has a choice. They could walk away. They could walk away and say, I'm not buying that house. The buyer will never be in a position where they're forced to do something and buy a house and pay us if they don't want to. They will know, they will have a choice. Hopefully that makes sense. So the goal here is to make sure, especially with this single page buyer agreements, making sure the buyer understands and feels comfortable with, you have the choice. You are in control. If you want to pay me, if you want the seller to pay me, you want to split it, you want someone else to pay me, this whole form, trying to make them feel comfortable about that. Now, The next paragraph underneath that is very important too. Basically, what it explains in there is that by law, we as realtors, whatever you have on this form, you can't make more. So read this line. That's the rule. That's /law. If you have a percentage on here and some reason the seller is offering you more, you can't make more. You would have to give it back to the buyer as a credit. So can this form be amended? Yes, we could go over that, but I strictly push our buyers, agents to understand, make sure you have the right number on here. Don't go low in hopes that the seller is going to be offering more. You can't do that. So if you have questions on that, but read that and understand that. You can't go small here in hopes that maybe you'll find a seller that is offering more and get more. Hopefully that makes sense. So read through that paragraph there. And then basically the second 7, 8 is just other buyers that they know that you might have other buyers for the same property. And 8, very important, we want to leave it open for people to cancel at any time. And we could cancel them at any time. This is not to say that we're not going to go after buyers to, that they could cancel right and then buy a house. We just showed them yesterday. That's a different story. You call me if you think you're in situations like that. If you get a buyer that wants out of their buyer agreement and you think there's something shady that they're doing, call me. We'll work through it. But this is more along if you don't think the relationship is going, you have a way to get out and they have a way to get out. But basically in this video, that's all I wanted to say today is go over that with you, this basic information on this. But I promise you, I'll go over this as many times as you want, one-on-one with you before you sign a buyer up, right after you sign a buyer up. You want a refresher, you want a role play. I love this form. I want to make sure all of our agents are very comfortable explaining it, using it, and making their buyers comfortable knowing that we're working for them and they are in control of who pays us. So that's it. Have a great day. Well, let me stop sharing my screen so you see my face. There I am. So thank you very much for watching today. Remember, call me, text me, get on my schedule, tonytalk.net, and put buyer broker agreement under the what you want to talk about, and I'll be ready to role play with you and help you out. So that's it. Have a great day, and I hope to talk to many of you very soon. Bye-bye.